Alright everyone, let's dive into some incredible ways to communicate more effectively. It's amazing how much better life gets when you know how to talk to people. Think about it, relationships, work, everything. Mastering communication is like unlocking a secret weapon. If you could just communicate better, maybe you wouldn't argue with your boss, or maybe that relationship wouldn't have ended, right? Misunderstandings happen because we don't communicate effectively, leading to hurt feelings, anger, and even breakups. So, this is about how to master both love and work. It's all about communication. Words are the tools of communication, so let's learn how to use them. If you can master the art of conversation, you can dominate life. Your career, your relationships, your family life, everything benefits. Humans are unique because of our ability to use language. It's the most powerful weapon that separates us from other animals. The most successful species on this planet has communication. Let's learn how to use the ultimate weapon. Let's get to the point. We're going to explore some fantastic communication strategies. Who's going to teach us? Well, this expert is a communication strategist, someone who coaches top executives on their speaking skills. This person has a pretty impressive resume, but let's focus on what we can learn. We all want to know what makes for good communication, so let's just learn. Let's forget about fancy titles and just focus on what we can learn from this expert. Let's see if we can pick up a tip or two that can help improve our communication skills. Even if it's just one or two things, it'll be worth it if it helps your relationships or your career. So, let's dive in and see what this person has to offer. The expert used to be a newspaper reporter. This person spent a year studying communication in places like Massachusetts and Cambridge. Now, they coach CEOs and other top executives on how to speak effectively. The expert interviewed many successful CEOs and learned what makes their communication so effective. They've combined that with formal study and practical experience. So, let's see what we can learn from them. Initially, I wondered if it would really be all that helpful. But as I started to delve into it, I realized, wow, this is really useful. The important thing isn't whether you like or dislike the expert or their resume. What matters is whether you can take away even one or two useful ideas that you can put into practice. If those ideas help you communicate better and improve your work life or your love life, then it's a win. So, let's focus on learning the techniques and putting them to use. There are tons of useful strategies we can learn. The first really important concept that struck me was the idea that empathy is everything. Can you empathize? That's the key question. It's about understanding. And here's an interesting idea. It's not about teaching empathy. It's about being empathetic. The type of speaker who will be effective in the future is one who emphasizes with their audience. The bottom line is, it's not what you say, but how you make the listener feel. This is so important. Think about it. When you have to give a presentation or persuade someone, what's the first thing that goes through your head? What am I going to say? You're completely focused on your words, your performance, your agenda. It's all me, me, me. But the key is how the other person feels. Why is this so crucial? Because, as the expert explains, people forget almost everything you say after a certain amount of time. It's true, isn't it? Let's say you met someone a couple of days ago. You talked, or at least saw or heard them speaking in some content. But can you remember exactly what they said? Not really. You might not remember what you spoke about in that coffee shop, or what your boss was rambling about in the meeting. You don't remember what your annoying coworker was saying. The details fade. However, you do remember how you felt. You remember whether you had a great time with the person, or if that experience with your coworker was awful. That emotional memory sticks with you. Time washes away the specific details of the information, but that emotional feeling remains. If that's the case, then wouldn't it make sense to focus on how you want to make the other person feel? You might give a long, detailed presentation, but people won't remember the specifics. However, they will remember if you inspired them, gave them courage, or motivated them. The worst thing that could happen is that you bring them down, discourage them, or make them dislike you. So, focus on the emotions you evoke. The problem is, most of us don't know what the goal is. We don't understand what communication is really about. The goal of communication is to leave the other person feeling good. Engrave that in your mind. It's not about what you say. Think about it like a race. It's not about how you start. It's about reaching the finish line. And the finish line is getting the other person to feel positive and uplifted. That's the goal. That's why empathy is so important. Some leaders, like Steve Jobs, were brilliant presenters, but also known for being aggressive. Today, the most successful leaders are more empathetic. The CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, and the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, are known for being empathetic leaders. It's not about giving a unique presentation. It's about sharing the why behind your product or service in a way that resonates with others. Because in the end, feelings are all that remain. Got it? So, you understand you need to focus on leaving a good feeling. You need to learn to stir those emotions. You want to learn how to create presentations that move people, right? All right, the lesson starts now. Pay attention. First, we'll talk about how to grab someone's emotions right away. We'll start with the most important parts. Then, we'll delve into the logical structure of a presentation. We'll talk about how to organize your thoughts in a logical way. Finally, we'll cover some extra techniques that can make your communication even more effective. We'll cover emotions, logic, and technique in that order. So, soak it all in. Take what you can use and apply it to your life. This is about more than just watching and feeling good. It's about putting these ideas into practice. I myself put these ideas into practice. And you know what? Applying what I learned has drastically changed my life. And I'm not the only one. So many other people have learned it too. The storyteller explains what he uses. So, if you apply this, your life will change. You'll be more free, you'll feel healthier, and you'll have more confidence. That's why I believe that improving your communication can transform your life. Right now, I have almost 4 million subscribers. I got here through speaking. I want to share some top speaking tips, so listen up. When it comes to emotions, the mistake many people make is that they are still focused on themselves. They're thinking, I want people to empathize with me. I want the audience to agree with me. I don't want to be booed. So many people think, I want to announce my ideas. I want to tell people that eating natto every day can make them healthy. Don't do that. Instead, empathy is about the speaker empathizing with the listener. It's the opposite of what you think. So let's understand what your audience is thinking. The best way to empathize with the audience is to use the word we. Think of it like this. Use we. We is the key to empathy. I often use we. I'm trying to get closer to you all. I wish I could come out of the screen and talk to you in person, but the screen is too hard. So, you're safe for now. But I am trying to connect with you all. We means us. I think this. I. Remember when you were kids and you had to write those book reports? Everyone starts with I. I went to the pool this summer. I read this book this summer. I is the most commonly used word. But instead, let's change that to we. We are talking to our group, our society, our circle of friends. When you shift your mindset, your whole message changes. For example, if you say, everyone has trouble getting up in the morning, instead of, you always oversleep, it feels less accusatory. Instead, say, we all have trouble getting up in the morning. That's why I was struggling. But then I tried this method and it worked. People are much more likely to listen to you if you include yourself. If you start by saying, I'm amazing, but you're all hopeless, no one will want to hear you. Instead, connect to people by saying, we're all humans, we're all going to fail, we're all going to make mistakes. See how much better that is? That's what we does. You might be thinking, I understand that, but I always use I. Well, try to be more conscious of it. Think about we. When people see my resume or hear my qualifications, they're intimidated. But don't worry, it's going to be okay. That's the approach. I understand how you feel, but it's going to be okay. Just like giving directions, you can't just run ahead. It's about walking together, knowing there are obstacles. It's about saying, I know this is scary, but let's take it one step at a time. You have to empathize with everyone. Start by empathizing with everyone. That's the starting point. Also, don't overload everyone with information. When people get nervous, they tend to cram as much information as possible into their presentations. They start firing information bullets everywhere. But that's not effective. It's like a scene from a horror movie where someone is shooting wildly into the darkness. You can't tell what you're saying, and it just doesn't work. Instead of unleashing a machine gun of information, tell a story. Can you really listen to a list of facts? It's boring, right? But if it's a story, you'll be hooked. You might not want to study, but you can't stop watching Netflix. Even when you're tired, you keep watching just one more episode. Why? Because it's a story. What are people watching on Netflix? There are all kinds of movies and TV shows, Korean dramas, American series, Hollywood movies. But they're all stories. Stories are what humans crave. So use that. What if you don't have a story? What if you're thinking, I don't have any stories to tell. My life is too boring. Everyone has an interesting story to tell. You just need to know how to tell it. Here's a simple recipe for creating stories. Before plus after plus realization. Before, after, and realization. For example, before I was very poor. I lived on wild plants. My siblings and I would fight over the weeds we found on the riverbed. After, I travel by private jet. I drink expensive champagne. What happened? Realization. I realized the power of cryptocurrency. What? What is that? I want to know. That's what makes it compelling. Think of another example. Before, I was bullied. My stepmother and stepsisters abused me. After, I'm the queen of the country. Realization. I realize the magic of glass slippers. What? How did a poor bullied girl become a princess? Through glass slippers? I want to know. That's the story of Cinderella. The realization is that you need courage to take a step. If I hadn't decided to go to the ball that night, my life wouldn't have changed. Even though I was scared, I realized there was something on the other side. By adding the before, after, and realization, you get your story. I read that on YouTube. So don't just copy it and start to tell your story for 3 or 4 hours. That's too long. It only works for short story, because if you talk for too long, they won't care. So try to make it about 30 seconds. You can do this by breaking things down to a few seconds. I used to be very bad at English. I didn't do well in English class, but now I live in Canada. What happened? I stopped studying textbooks and started watching foreign movies. That's just a few seconds. The most important part is to make sure you're not just speeding ahead. Check for reactions. It's the most important part. And don't forget that if you are overbearing, you need to check back in and make sure you don't sound annoying. Make sure people can hear you. So you need to listen and see if you get the proper reaction. And then you're on your way.